Welcome to the Masters Alliance podcast, Uncut. I'm Herb Perez. Today we are joined by Grandmaster Meschelle Smith. I remember her from back when I was competing, and she was a ferocious competitor and competed in the 1988-1992 team trials for the Olympics and Pan Am Games. And one of the most memorable things is how she handled that experience and then transformed it and her life to include a career in police enforcement, state trooper in New York, and then a successful school owner and also coach of the AAU team. She also continues to compete, and she competes in the USA Masters and travels around the world with people just like her who enjoy the passion and the sport of Taekwondo. So relax, sit back, strap in for another terrific podcast. Welcome to the Masters Alliance podcast, Uncut. I'm Herb Perez, and today I'm joined by a good friend of mine. We met many years ago during our competition years, and she was competing and trying out for the 1988 Olympic team. And that journey has led her to an amazing place, not only in life, but in careers and things that she has come back to. I'd like to welcome Master Meschelle Smith.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Always good. You know, I couldn't think of someone better that I would like to spend some time with and talk a little bit about the passion that we both share, which is Taekwondo. And towards that end, I wanted to start with a little bit about your beginning. You had begun at such a young age. Could you walk us through your early experiences in the sport and what key individuals or mentors shaped your development?
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Actually, I started kind of late. I started at 17 in high school. And a good friend of mine, who I'm a dear friend with today, actually got me started. And actually, I started by being a little bit of a wise butt because during lunch, he was in the gym and he was practicing his poomsae. And I was actually, being silly and saying, you don't know what you're doing and that kind of thing. And he invited me to a class and I went and it just absolutely blew me away. And My 17th birthday was coming up and I went home and I asked my parents, and that was what I got for my 17th birthday. So I started and never looked back.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, you know, 17 is still kind of young. There are people that start later in life and they don't take it to the amazing place that you did. But starting at 17, I mean, you've reached the rank of 8th Don Grandmaster, which is a remarkable feat. Could you elaborate on your training and maybe the personal growth required to achieve this level of mastery?
Yeah, my instructor, Master Grandmaster Les Stampino, um, and I never knew this, I actually started training only 3 years after he attained his black belt. And so I was one of, and still am, his senior student there. And so we kind of, he was ahead of me, but we kind of made this journey together, I guess you would say. And I was actually really, really extremely introverted and shy. So, I had a lot of problems growing up, being bullied, the same old story. And I was the quiet one, so I was the easy target. And then, I started taking Taekwondo, and literally did not make a sound, didn't look anybody in the eye, didn't key up, uh, and until green belt, actually. So it was really weird that my instructor stuck with me, but I was that introverted and shy. And then, um, going through the ranks, I had a good friend of mine, Michael Smalls, join with me. So I kind of had a little support system as I was going through the ranks because he had trained prior in a different discipline. Um, and then, basically, it was a competition school. I mean, we started right out at white belt competing. So, I would compete and would lose constantly. I lost for 2 years straight. Had a really tough time with controlling my emotions, my anger, and things like that. And, one day my instructor said, if you want to continue to keep sparring, then I'm going to have you start competing in forms. So he made me start competing in forms, and I'm competitive. So, I did the best that I could in forms, and it actually did. It calmed me down. It taught me how to, control my emotions, my nerves, everything that goes into competing. So to this day, I'm a strong believer in, you got to keep that poomsae going because it just keeps your mind strong.
Well, Grandmaster, that's a great point. I'm not a huge poomsae fan, but having just had to test for my last Don in the cookie one, I had done a lot of work on it, and I find that it helped me understand a little bit better the purpose of poomsae. But with your competition record, which is awe-inspiring, could you maybe share a specific tournament or match that pushed you to your limits and taught you the lessons of perseverance and resilience?
Oh, absolutely. First thing that comes to mind is 88 games. That's the first thing that comes to mind. It really pushed me financially, mentally, physically. Um, and as early as 85, I mean, I hadn't even heard of Olympic sparring. I was a point fighter before then, but I kept getting disqualified for contact, and so my instructor heard about Taekwondo going into the Olympics. He said it's full contact. This is right up your alley. So it was basically I had to learn a whole different style of fighting, which was mentally exhausting and frustrating. But my first national championship with at then USU, right, and now it's USAT. I was lucky enough to get bronze, so I was invited to a training camp at the Olympic Training Center, and I was out there for a week, and I felt like just didn't know the steps, didn't know the terminology, and thank God, Lynette Love. She was patient but stern, and that's what I needed. And you, sir, were patient but stern. You required a certain level of commitment and excellence out of the athletes, and so I learned that right on. And when I got home, I just committed myself to learning and getting all this stuff down. And then in '87, I was fortunate enough and blessed enough to take that national title in '87, and that kind of got things going. And I said, maybe I can do this, and just started training. I was working full time, but I just devoted as much time as I could to training. I would get up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and go do a run. I hate running. I used to have someone make sure I got up and went for a run, and then I would go work my job, and I would come home and take a shower and go to the dojang and start training again. And anytime I could go away, I used to go away and train with Lynette. I used to go away and train with Kim Dotson. Anytime I could go away because it wasn't very popular around here, so I didn't really have people to train with. And then the 88 came because I was '87 national champion. I could bypass nationals and go right to trials. I did that. Team trials, I thought was probably the most physical thing I've ever done in my life. You have to be in top shape, because you're just fighting, 3 rounds, 3 minutes all day long. And I was fortunate enough to wind up being the top fighter at team trials. And Then it came down to me and Sharon, which we were rivals, we battled. And and at that time, and sir, at that time, you don't like your competitor, you do everything you can to you put their I used to put her picture up on the wall, and this is why I'm training, and blah blah blah. And it came down to me and her at the finals. I was the top player going into finals, and that was in North Carolina. And we battled, and I really felt strongly that I won the match. She's a tremendous fighter. I respect her, her ability, her past, her present. She's a legend. But as an athlete, I'm a competitive athlete, and I felt I won. I felt I won that spot for '88 Olympics. Not no disrespect to her. And so that kind of broke me when they rose her hand. I felt confident that I took the matches, and it did. It broke me. Uh, but I went over after and I shook her hand. I congratulated her. I wished her good luck. And she was very gracious to come later to my room and invite me down to the athletes party, and I thought that was really nice on her part. And we spoke before, sir. You came, and you were willing to give me the down dirty as to why I lost, and I accepted that and I respected that, and and life goes on.
Those are great words. And that's what made you a great competitor. You were willing to do what was necessary, accept the outcome, even though you may not have agreed with it. And I found myself in a very similar place in 1988.
Yes, sir.
And so it's hard, difficult, if not impossible for some to make that transition. But you made that transition and used that energy and time to become a better athlete and a better Taekwondo Sabam and Grandmaster. You've made a successful transition from being a competitor to a coach. And maybe it's in part to some of the experiences you've had, but what are the unique challenges that you faced in adapting to this new role? And how did your experience as a world-class athlete inform your coaching methods?
I think, once I made the transition over to coaching, it was nice because the AAU actually approached me and asked me if I wanted to be on the national coaching staff, and that's really the first time I was like, you know, am I good enough to be on the coaching staff and that kind of thing. And but I accepted the position, and I'm still on the national coaching staff now. And um I think for me, it's constantly trying to better myself and my knowledge so that my athletes get the best training that they can. I will bring them anywhere they need to go. I know some people are afraid to do that. They're afraid to kind of get their students out, seeing other people. Sometimes they're afraid they're going to lose that athlete. I've lost a couple of athletes because of it, and you know what? If they felt they needed to go somewhere else, that's okay. That's okay. And I still see them and I still say hello to them and that kind of thing. So, but I feel if I'm going to be the best coach that I can be for my athletes, I need to constantly be learning and adapting because, sir, today's rules, they change. They change all the time. And there's always a counter to last week's, approach. And there's always a new move to something. So, I take as many seminars as I can. I stay up on the new rules as much as I can, and like I said, and I bring them wherever they need to go because they need to grow as athletes and they need to get out there and see what's out there.
And
So
that's a hard philosophy for a lot of coaches. And having coached for a long time back from where we are both from, and the amount of time that we invest in an athlete and the amount of energy that we invest in an athlete, it's difficult when that happens. I was always fortunate to stay loyal, and you've been very fortunate, and people around you, because you stay loyal to the people who have helped you, and I see you still interacting with them. And that leads me to my question about your coaching philosophy, which seems to be rooted both in mental and physical development. Can you elaborate maybe on how you integrate these aspects to create a well-rounded Taekwondo practitioner?
yeah, I try as best I can to get them to understand because as you know, sir, the mental game is probably 95% of it. I've seen people, I'm not really gifted. I tell people all the time, I'm not a gifted person. I'm not extremely flexible. I think with me, it was more the will. I had the will. I believed in myself. I knew I could do it. Even with limited flexibility, a lot of people didn't know that I have severe scoliosis. I was born with that. So it really impacted my left leg a lot. So I adapted by developing a good punch, good spins, that kind of thing. Um, but a lot of people didn't realize that, my left leg was really, off. So the mental game, I think, is what I push on my athletes, and of course, they've got to train. They've got to train. They've got to be physically ready. But you can be physically ready and not mentally ready, and you really need to be mentally ready. That has to be there, and you got to be able to control those nerves and control those voices in your head saying, my legs are heavy, and that kind of thing. And so I try and get them, sports psychologists. I try and get them to come in and talk to them a lot. Whenever I see something, I'm a big I'm not a big basketball fan, but I'm a big Kobe Bryant fan. You know, his philosophy and his approach was just amazing. And you know, I take a lot of what he would say, and you know, if I get a blurb, and I'll just post it to my competition page, you know, and this is what, you know, coach was talking about the other day, you know, about how to control those nerves, or this is what I was talking about the other day about, you know, when you're mentally frustrated and you're tired, you know, how do I overcome that in the middle of a round, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, I try and stay mentally focused with them as much as physically focused with them.
I think that's important, and obviously, it's amazing that you continue to share those with your athletes because many people aren't willing to invest in themselves, and it sounds like you continually invest in your work product, but more importantly, into your knowledge, and then you share that with the athletes. And that's I think it's a great trait. But you have some experience as a New York State police officer, which luckily I have never been pulled over by a New York State trooper or police officer. But could you delve into the specific skills or mindsets that you developed during that time and how it translated into your martial art instructing and leadership roles?
Oh yeah, you know, I when after the '88 games, I went into the state police, and it's a 6 month training academy. And it was very tough. It was extremely tough. And you know, just like the athletes of old and the athletes of new, same thing. You know, troopers that have gone through, they say, "Oh, your class was easy," and then the next class goes through, and then we say, "Oh, your class was easy," that kind of thing. So, but it was physically and mentally demanding. It was 6 months, but I never, you know, we had to stay at the academy for that week, and we get to go home on the weekends. And basically, when you go home, you have to study because your academics have to be there. You have to learn every law in New York State, not just in your municipality, but everywhere. So there was a lot of studying involved. But I always made sure Friday, 5 o'clock when we got out, I had my dobok in the car, and I would drive right to my dojang because I know if I didn't, I wouldn't go. I would be too tired, or I would, you know, that kind of thing. So I always made sure as soon as I got released, I went to my dojo to train first, and then the rest of the weekend was dedicated towards studying, that kind of thing. And then I think it really helped me going into the '92 games. You know, I did the '92 Pan American Games uh, championship, and it really helped there because my mindset was a little bit different from '88. You know, my mindset going into '92 was I'm going to make every win clear, clear as gold, so they couldn't take it away from me. Um, so those team trials, you know, I was much more physical and focused on demanding and commanding my matches, I should say. So there was no doubt. So I made that team, and I was fortunate enough to take gold in '92 at the Pan Am Games championships. So, um, you know, I think the 6 months of police work and the training, and then a little bit out on the road, and once I got off the '92 games, I became one of the first defensive tactics females for the state police that actually passed the DT test, like the guys did. So I was kind of proud of that. And I was a DT instructor for a long time. So the Taekwondo kind of played a good role when I was teaching the recruits because I could teach it from that angle a little bit. The guy that I worked with was open to me teaching a little bit from my point of view. Um, and then, you know, my school, even though it's traditional half sport Taekwondo, I also include other things. I include boxing, I include hand to hand, I include weapon detentions. So gun and knife weapon, you know, retentions, you know what I mean? And I feel like, you know, even though today's game obviously is a lot of legs, obviously, and we don't do a lot of upper body, just punching to the body and stuff like that. But you know, in reality, where are we going to get hit, right? I mean, we're going to get punched, right? And sometimes we're going to get punched in the back of the head, or you know, that kind of thing. So I try and keep uh, that kind of balance, you know, realism into the training as well.
And that leads me into my next question because you answered two of my other questions in your first, which was great. You have a unique background as a law enforcement and a martial artist, how has that enriched your ability to connect and inspire students from diverse backgrounds?
Yeah, because, as a police officer, we're not always surrounded with the best people, right? Um, you know, and we're constantly, you have to deal with people from different backgrounds and different ideologies. And I've learned to speak to somebody respectfully, right? And that's the Taekwondo thing. And as a police officer, when I had a tough arrest or I had a tough a case or anything like that, I always remember that I would always speak to that person respectfully first because they're going through something. They're angry about something and they want somebody to listen. I might still have to arrest them, but they want somebody to listen. They want somebody to hear them, and I always kind of remembered that, you know what I mean? And so when people come into my school, I literally have uh, across the spectrum as far as diversity in my school, and I'm really proud of that. Men, women of all kinds of backgrounds, races, and religion. And I always make sure that my school is inclusive and I've run a couple times where I've had to speak with somebody about language, dealing with race or different backgrounds, and I tell them instead of assuming something, learn something from that person, learn something from their background, because we can all learn something from our backgrounds, right? And we learn that we're a lot closer than we think we are. You know what I mean? So yeah, so dealing with law enforcement and dealing with all kinds of people in law enforcement, and also as much traveling as I do as an athlete, and I deal with a lot of people from different backgrounds. It really, really helps.
And, you now and have for a while owned your school and your business, and that comes with its own set of challenges and rewards. Could you share maybe some of the key lessons you've learned as a business owner in the martial arts industry?
The first thing, which was the hardest thing, is know your worth. Know your worth. Don't be afraid to ask for what you feel you are worth. Um, and also, I'm a female in a man's world, and it takes a lot for a guy to come in with his son and say, I want you to teach my son Taekwondo. They could go somewhere else where they have a male, so do I have to do a little bit more marketing? Sure. Do I have to sell myself a little bit more? Sure. Do they have to know, when I hand somebody a pamphlet, is my resume right there on the top? Absolutely. Because I know I have to put that extra, mile in there to get that person to understand that, yes, I know what I'm doing and I can teach your son or I can teach your daughter, that kind of thing. So that's a little bit of a challenge, but at the same time, I love challenges. I accept the challenge, and I'm grateful I've been here for 26 years. So, a little bit of a downside for me is, and I don't want to get personal, but relationships are tough when you're a female school owner. I was married to a wonderful man, uh, but it just didn't work out. Because I travel a lot, I'm busy, and it's a reverse role. It's like you see a lot of taekwondo gentlemen and their wives, they're more than willing to go. They're more than willing to go on the trip, and I don't want to say take that back seat, but they're there to support. You know what I mean? But it's tough for a guy to do that. And we've had conversations about that, and I try and understand that, but I also had try to make him understand that this is what I do for a living. So that part is a challenge. It's tough.
Yeah, I no doubt. It's what you said in the beginning was interesting and resonates with me because when you look at how much time and energy we spend as instructors and becoming masters and grandmasters of our craft, we spend more time than doctors spend becoming doctors. And so I always counsel people and give them advice: charge what you're worth, charge
Right.
what the market will bear, because that's the amount of time. And so much to the fact that these days, even when I receive new members, I interview the parents and the child and evaluate them. And at the end of that meeting, I make a decision or not whether I'm going to take that student. And I don't take everyone. And I tell them up front, we're evaluating you for membership in our school, and we don't take everyone. If you're not a good
Right.
fit for my community, we're not going to take you. And that's not a commentary on you, to commentary on us and how we build our community. We'll refer you to someone else if you're not a good fit for us.
Mhm.
And then, to be honest, we extend them 24 hours to make a decision. At the end of that, we don't take them, and we don't take them if they come back. And I think this is hard for people because I think in our industry, so many people think that they choose us. And for
Right,
years, people have done that. They've allowed themselves to be chosen.
right,
I don't allow myself to be chosen. I choose people because I want to build my community. The most valuable thing I have is the community that I
right.
build. But I became aware that you're doing instructional videos and they've reached quite a wide audience. Could you discuss the production process and the feedback you've received from your viewers, and then how do you measure the impact of these resources?
Yeah, that was a little while ago. I haven't done one in a while, but I did three. And I guess, do you remember, we all remember Billy Blanks, right? And his videos and things like that. And I remember I he was a good friend of mine. I fought on the same circuit as he did and everything. And I was approached to make these videos, and I said I will, and just like you said, sir, I'll make them on my terms, right? And my terms were, it had to be from not only a fitness level but a women's self-defense level. It had to incorporate that women's self-defense. So I'm not just going to do, 30 kicks on this leg, 30 kicks on this leg, and let's jump around and be happy. Um, I wanted to make sure that it also sent a message, on women's self-defense, and, how important it is for women to know how to defend themselves and things like that. Um, and they did well. I mean, at one point they were, I forget the young lady who was number one fitness, um, but I was like number two for a little bit. So, but then, like I said, when things got busy, I had to kind of turn my attention to more coaching, and then I got back into competition a few years back. So I've been competing too. So that's kind of been taking up some time too.
Is there any advice you would give aspiring entrepreneurs in the martial art world who are looking to create their own business or instructional materials?
Oh yeah, I mean, basically know your demographics. That's the first thing, know your demographics. Second thing, like I said before, know your worth, and don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid to, people call it bragging. I don't call it bragging. I call it, you've done something with your life, and don't be afraid to share that. So I don't call it bragging at all. So don't be afraid to tell people what you know and what knowledge you can give them. The other thing I think is, financially, you have to understand what your limit is and stay within your limit, because a lot of times, especially when you open your first dojo, you want it to be, you want it to pop, you want it to be state of the art. But a lot of times that can be detrimental because you don't understand right away what it costs, the overhead, and what give yourself 4 or 5 years before you start, really expanding, because you get, then you have, a little bit more knowledge of what it takes to actually keep those doors open every day. You know what I mean? So, I've seen people open and close within 5 years just because they started out just way too big, way too, unless you got financial backing, that kind of thing. I didn't have any. So, I started small, and as I grew, I broadened my horizons, that kind of thing. So,
You've received a lot of honors and accolades throughout your career. What are the ones that you remember or the ones that you cherish most deeply, and why?
I think, believe it or not, um, I've been inducted in the Hall of Fame 3 times, but I think the last one was the most uh, personal to me because it was from my hometown. You know, they approached me. I live in Schenectady, New York, and not too many people know where that is. But um, you know, I was on that list for the longest time, and I finally got the call, and they were like, it's your year. And then, unfortunately, my parents were gone at that point. I was hoping that they would still be here, but I think that was the most personal one for me because, I had people in the audience, family and friends and things like that, and it was really nice. So I think that was one of my top accolades. I think if I had to choose one.
How do you hope to continue inspiring and empowering future generations of martial artists, and both through your coaching and maybe through various other projects?
Right now, believe it or not, I feel that I am inspiring older athletes because I'm on the Masters team, U.S. Masters team, um, and a wonderful, wonderful human being and martial artist. She's our captain, Master Trinity Osborne. Started this out as just a whisper, and it's just blown up. She's just done so much, and I think for me, I hear all the time, what an inspiration I am at my age. I'm going to be 63 and still competing. I love getting in the ring. you know, I don't look the same way, but you know what? It's amazing. I have an amazing time. I love staying in shape. And it gives me a purpose. It gives me a goal. And when somebody comes up to me, or if they say, they saw one of my workouts on Facebook, um, they say, Michelle, you're such an inspiration, and that really makes me feel good, and I'll get, private messages, and how can I do this better, and how can I get started, and it's just people that I didn't think I'd ever hear from, or just out of the blue, or just people that I don't even know, and hey, I just want some advice on something, and to me, that's amazing. It's very humbling, that I can still, you know reach out to people and give them knowledge and give them help and that kind of thing. So I think that part of it is really good. Um, and I hope, I'll be there for as long as I can. So I love it.
And I think that, I remember not only your previous career, but I'm watching this new one with the U.S. Masters team, and I think having met Trinity and then a few others, in my mind, I think about, although I don't uh, compete anymore, 'cause I love competing. I just don't compete anymore. But every time I see you guys, I kind of inspires me to think a little bit about it, and I should, but
We would love it.
I
We would
know,
love
but
it.
maybe my last big competition, my instructor gave me some great advice. He said after the Olympics, he said retire. I wanted to fight one more year, but I had my student fight instead, and he went on to compete in the '93 World Championships, and had a great career, Peter. But I always wish I had done that one more. But I've seen some great people. I had my time and I enjoyed it, and I'm happy. But I'll still hold out hope maybe one
Yeah.
day with the U.S. Masters.
Yes.
Could you
Yes.
share some details about your upcoming projects or initiatives that you're working on, and what may be particularly exciting you?
Right now, the immediate future, basically, I'm training for next year for the World Masters championships in Taiwan, and I think we're also going to compete in Sweden next year. So that's primarily what I'm working on personally right now is keeping my body, injury free, and being smart about how I go about my workouts and things like that. Because I don't spring back as fast as I used to. Um, but and also, you know, embarking on again more coaching. I think so. Coaching and getting ready for next year. And I think, and I said it last year in Korea. I fought Korea last year, and I said, this will be it. But something about that world title, or that world at the beginning of something, it really makes you want to get out there one more time.
That brings me to maybe one of my final questions. How do you envision the future of Taekwondo, and what role do you see yourself playing in its continued growth and evolution?
Um, Sport wise or just traditional wise or both?
Both. I mean, I think one of the things that I always think about is the legacy of what we do. It has given us all such a tremendous gift. And then those of us who continue, as you have, to expand ourselves and give back to the sport, I think are the majority of Koreans stop competing, they stop teaching, they stop doing anything unless they just don't, to be honest, have another way to make money. So the Koreans that came up with us, these great players that I respected, they just stopped doing taekwondo. They don't kick. They don't kick targets. They don't kick anything. And they liked the outcomes or the goals, but they didn't necessarily like the process. And you seem just like most of us that are continuing to do it to enjoy the process. So for you, you know, I always prompt my guests to think about, and they not that they haven't, but what is your role in that and the continuing growth and evolution, and then and to speak frankly with the current set of rules, which are, you know, not rules that I would like, and certainly I'm imagining and remembering your fighting, can't imagine that you love them. So
Yeah.
that's my own battle to fight, and I have my
Yeah.
own feelings about the WT and how it's being handled and who's leading it. But in your situation, you know, you're such a positive individual. What do you see as your place in the future of our sport and art? And what do you think that you'll do to help its growth or evolution?
I feel like I think for me, I want to help other uh young entrepreneurs, who are looking to open schools or I love that process of mentoring them. There's a young man in the area right now who is opening a school and he comes to me a lot for a lot of advice. And I really love, helping people. I like helping people to, answer those questions that I didn't have anybody to answer for me when I was opening up a school. We kind of learn by oops, let's not do that again kind of thing. Um, so I hope that I can continue to mentor. I mean, I really enjoy helping. I hope that I can continue to coach and expand my craft as a coach. I do like uh, coaching on a national level. I do like coaching. I haven't gotten to that high. I'm in the level two bracket right now, but I love watching these high level coaches and I study them and how they coach their students and how they train their students. It's just really interesting to see that process. Um, so I hope that I can continue to mentor people. I can continue to train people. Um, I don't know how much longer I'll run a traditional school, but I will always, in some way, shape, or form, be uh, training athletes and coaching athletes. I know that. I know that's what I guess, destined to do, if you want to call it a destiny. I know I'm always going to be involved in Taekwondo in some way, shape, or form. So,
I think that's a great start and certainly a great continued legacy. I'm going to invite you to another conversation we're going to have later about the sport in general, and I hope you'll accept my invitation. And it'll be a forum kind of on the same topic. But I'd like to extend another offer to you. We've developed a conversation and then an educational program on something that might interest you and others. And it's what does it mean to be a modern day master, and what are the skills that we as instructors should have and share with our students and with our athletes, and then obviously with our contemporaries and people that we're helping. And so um, I think it would be interesting for you, and I think we'd love your input on it as well. So I'll send you some information on that so we can circle back on that. But I just wanted to say thank you for today, because when I thought about you, and I can remember the stories that you remember, and your strength, your humility, and then you also came from a different competition, competitive background, as a lot of our great athletes did. To be honest, um, most of our successful Olympians came from that arena, right? Arlene was one of the first, and Juan Moreno and I competed in that arena, not to the extent that you guys did, but I competed in the what would have been called the point taekwondo competitions in the area. And I
mm,
think that that yielded great athletes who understood the balance of power versus speed and strategy. And you always exemplified that, and you always carried yourself in that way. And I also would like to applaud you for staying in touch with and recognizing the people like Lynette and Kim Dotson, who's also, I think, is very similar to you as a fighter, and those people that you came up with. But your continued passion, and I hope it never changes, Grandmaster, for the sport and the art. And where is the next Masters? The U.S. Masters? What country?
It's either going to be Taiwan uh, or Sweden. I believe we're going to do both.
Nice. Well, if you go to Taiwan, I'll come because my wife is Taiwanese, and that'll give me a reason
Awesome.
to visit. Sweden, maybe. Maybe. But on behalf of the Masters Alliance podcast Uncut, I wanted to thank you for sharing your extensive history as a career, as a passion, as an avocation, because I want people to hear that story and understand the path is hard, but it's rewarding. And you certainly are an individual who demonstrates that.
Thank you so much, sir. I can't tell you what an honor it is to be asked to do this. I was actually kind of starstruck, not gonna lie. Um, but I've always, and you know this, sir, I've always respected you as an athlete, as an advocate. I love your passion. I love reading your posts. And there's not many people out there who are willing to speak. And and like I said, as a coach, I mean, I love that the athletes are still doing as well as they are. Today's athletes are wonderfully talented, you know. Uh, but yeah, we've got, and it's always, again, it's a generational thing, right? One generation has an opinion about another generation, but we love the sport, we have the passion for the sport, and we respect the athletes. And I think at the end of the day, that speaks a lot. So I truly appreciate you inviting me, and thank you so much.
Kind words, and thank you so much. Well, I told you that was going to be a great podcast with an inspiring individual who has had an amazing career, diverse career, and successful career, following her dreams and her passions, all the way from early days of competition, which continue even today as a USA Masters competitor, traveling around the world with her friends and enjoying the beauty of Taekwondo. She serves as an example of what role models should be in our sport and in our art, and what is available to you if you reinvest in yourself. This has been a Masters Alliance podcast Uncut with Herb Perez, and please check out our other versions of the podcast with equally as inspiring individuals who share their methods of success and their passion for all things Taekwondo. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong.